The major goal with this particular meeting is to increase your awareness of this platform, to increase awareness among clinical trialists and research centers and research sites. So we have a fairly large number of people on the line already. We expect that there'll be more people joining as the meeting proceeds. This is a new venture, as you will see as the presentations go through. So one of the big points that we want is to increase your awareness as well as get you to start to register on this platform. So as with most of these types of meetings, there's a large team in the background that's helping to make sure that all of the logistics work. So Wycliffe, Caxton are monitoring questions. You might have already found the chat feature. We would encourage you to pose your question or post your questions as the presentations go through on the chat. And you might even start that process already by just saying hi to the people that are in the meeting. In addition to the chat feature, we have a piece of software that we will use in order to engage with you a little bit on some specific things that the team wanted to hear from you. And we have Faith, who is our intern. Unfortunately, her picture is not on the slide, but I'm going to ask Faith. Well, firstly, I'm going to ask the panelists if they could go off video. I will ask them, I will introduce them again as we come to each one of them just before they present. So to save bandwidth, you could go off video. Faith, if you could go onto video and take us through your plans as to how you'd like us to use the Mentimeter software. Thanks, Faith. I can see you. Test the audio first.
Hello.
Perfect. Over to you, Faith.
Thank you so much, Colin, and thank you everyone for joining us once again. In a few seconds, I will take you through Mentimeter, and we will be using it to do real-time surveys, which means that we will be able to see the results of what you vote as they come in. I'm just waiting for Wycliffe to share the PowerPoint, and then we can proceed from there. I see more people are joining us. Welcome. We will begin shortly.
And Wycliffe, I'm assuming that you are trying to get that started. There we go.
Thank you, Wycliffe. These are the instructions that we'll be using. It's very easy to follow. Link will be posted on the chat. If not, you can just go to a separate browser on your computer or whip out your smartphone and type menti.com. Menti.com, MENTI.com, and wait. If everybody's there, you can enter the code 601749, 601749. Is everybody ready? Okay, we shall begin. If you can see, the first question is type in which country you're coming in from. Thank you. I can see the results coming in. This question is timed at 30 seconds. I will start. Thank you, everybody, for bringing in your votes. I encourage all of you to please type in the country you're joining us from. Six seconds, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I will go to the next question. If prompted, just click go to next slide. And I will start the timer now. Type the role in the clinical trials community that best describes you. I see a lot of data scientists. Thank you. Thank you. We have 5 more seconds. Thank you, everybody. 3, 2, 1. Thank you all for joining. I will be back with another question in a while. Colin, back to you.
So thanks very much, Faith. Welcome to those that are in the process of joining the meeting. We just went through a software system that we'll be using in order to engage with you a little bit. So Faith, tell me, did you want to show some answers?
Thank you, Colin. We should be able to show the results towards the end. Wycliffe will be able to pull that.
Okay, perfect. So with that, let me now go into the presentations by the 4 speakers that we have. The first one is Professor Tom Karaoke. Tom is the Director of Programs at the African Academy of Sciences. In many respects, Tom is almost like the father of this particular program. If you could just hold on for me 1 second, I'm going to go on mute to close my door. So apologies for that. I had some stray sound coming in. So Tom is gonna spend a few minutes giving a little bit of background around this project. And Tom, I credited you with being the father of this program because you've been with this right from the very beginning. So Tom, over to you. Please unmute, Tom.
I'm muted now and I'm on green to go. Thanks a lot. And good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever it is you're coming from. And thank you for joining us and participating in this meeting. So I'm delighted to welcome all of you to this session and this webinar on the clinical trials community. As mentioned by Colin, we have had a journey to get to where we are with this build up of the clinical trials platform at the African Academy of Sciences. Very briefly is to say that we think that it is opportune time now for us to really bring clinical trials in a much bigger way than has happened over many years. We know that we are the continent that still bears a large burden of diseases. Very few clinical trials are being conducted on the continent. Less than 2% of all the clinical trials that happen globally coming to Africa. That's a very meager number that we are receiving on a continent. And even this 2% that we receive, it is disproportionately actually going to just two countries out of the 55 African countries. So if you take the 2% that comes to Africa, about 67-70% of those trials are being held in South Africa and Egypt. So the rest of the continent then has to share around 30% of whatever remains with regard to clinical trials. And actually, it is also distributed along some, institutions that have built capacity over many years. Congratulations to all of them. But there are fewer than we would want to see in terms of equity and equitable partnerships across the continent. We would like to see more and more news institutions and centers coming on board. So what I think has been hindering our progress has been this lack of consolidated effort to increase the visibility of the African trials and the centers and institutions that are leading this. And therefore, we need to find ways of how we are going to enhance collaborations to support clinical trial capacity development on the continent. And there are no doubt in my mind that over our engagement over the last few years, there is a lot of interest expressed by various sectors globally, from funders to biotech companies, to biopharmaceutical companies, and to various other sponsors who would want to see an increase of this number of less than 2% to 5%, and maybe even more than that moving forward. So with regard to the African Academy of Sciences, we've had many stakeholders that we have had lots of discussions on how this should be moving forward. So just to mention a few, some of the influential groups that we have been in audience with over the last few years. We've had, of course, a lot of discussions with those who have funded us to create this platform, including at the global levels, people like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, support from EDCTP, for example, support of AUDA NEPAD as an African thought partner. More recently, very close linkages with Africa CDC, particularly in the context of how we can attract more COVID-19 clinical trials to Africa. I have been involved with CEPI, a London-based organization that is supporting putting hundreds of millions of dollars into the development of vaccines across the world. And at the moment, I think there are lots of money that is going to for the development of clinical trials for the pandemic. And others, including the World Health Organization, particularly also the Congo Brazzaville team that has been reaching out and in many ways to find ways to work together. And other partners like NIH and Wellcome and other global funders who are very, very interested in how they could support more clinical trials and more clinical research in Africa. So we are trying to use the CTC, this platform, to bridge this gap by creating a platform that really supports the increased feasibility of the clinical trials, institutions, enhanced multi-center collaborations that we hope will be aimed at clinical trials capacity to build this more. And I'm looking forward to hear from many of you as we get into these discussions over the next hour or so. So thank you very much, all of you, for your time and for really making the time to participate in this webinar. Thank you, and over back to you, Colin and the team.
So thanks very much, Tom. And colleagues, you saw the broad range of support for this effort. If you have questions for Tom, feel free to type them into the chat right now. We will then collate that and do Q&A right at the end. So the next speaker that is going to give you a brief set of comments. Since we're talking about clinical trials, it would be good to hear from somebody with extensive clinical trials experience on the continent. So Dr. Ali is our next speaker. He's with the Ifakara Health Institute. Ali, I wonder whether you could say a little bit of stuff that can give this team some sort of background. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Collins, and thank you for inviting me to this very important discussion. So as we have heard from the previous speaker, when it comes to clinical trials, African Research Institution and as well as trialists in Africa do need to increase visibility to really offset the numbers which have been given in terms of the inequities when it comes to trials. So it will be important and helpful to have a place which will act as sort of one-stop platform that consolidates all the relevant information about the researchers in Africa, the ethical and regulatory infrastructures and procedures, the sites and the underlying, for instance, disease-specific information. So information such as the level of expertise at the site, experience, areas of interest, the human resource, the infrastructure. These will be very, very important and helpful information when it comes to decisions by the sponsors and other collaborators to engage science in Africa or researchers in Africa. So if we have such platforms, this will attract not only the collaborators from the industry or the sponsors, but also other researchers in Africa, and hence increase the chances that African trialists will be involved in either sort of solo project between themselves and the specific clinical trial sponsors, or collaborative research, sort of bringing together a number of other African research centers. So this, I think, is one of the utility of such platform, and which I see as a clinical trialist in Africa. What it will also be helpful, I think. What will also be helpful in the fact that platforms should be able to facilitate interaction between African researcher and sharing of best practices. And this, I hope, will in turn improve the quality of research across the continent, as well as create research networks that will be beneficial to African trialists themselves, ensuring that there's a constant transfer of best practices from center of excellences to newly emerging site, for instance. And these networks will also attract potential clinical trial sponsors and external collaborators who might want to leverage the existing wealth of expertise in this network. So again, I see this platform sort of creating or playing that role as well. And then I think finally, as a final comment from my side, we are all aware, I mean, most of us, we've been completing, these documents from either sponsors and CRO, and we're all aware how tedious and often unrewarding it is to complete these feasibility forms, and several times in response to requests from clinical trial sponsors and CRO. But I think it should be much easier if this information is sort of consolidated in one place, and you only complete it once, of course, with maybe regular updates when relevant. And this information is easily accessible to in one location where sponsors and other collaborators can have access and can sort of search depending on their interest. And I think the CT platform, this platform which has been created, I hope should indeed be able to provide this possibility. So I see a great value and utility of such platform, and from the side of a clinical trialist who is looking for work or sort of collaboration and study across different fields. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ali. Great. So colleagues, I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that there's a section called handouts, and in the handouts you will see the biographies of all the panelists. We've deliberately kept the panelists to make very brief introductory comments, but what you will see from the biography that Ali has got extensive local experience on the ground. They're doing various malaria vaccine studies. Tom alluded to the fact that there's a lot of interest in COVID vaccine studies for the continent. So any questions for Ali, please type them into the chat and we can go back into that when we get to the Q&A. So our next speaker is Margaret from NEPAD, and she's going to give us some comments around regulatory perspectives, a very key area for this area. Margaret, over to you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Margaret, and we can see you, so it all works well. Go for it.
Thank you. Allow me to, first of all, thank the African Academy of Sciences for really coming up with this very good initiative, the clinical trial community platform. And I think this is coming really at the right time when we see the need, especially now that we have this COVID-19 pandemic that is affecting the globe. But I think for Africa, this is really an opportune time for us to see how best we can promote, the best, scientific excellence on the continent and inspire research leadership and accelerate innovation in the ways that will improve our lives and shift the centers of gravity of the African science to Africa. And therefore, for us as the African Union Development Agency, we see this as really a very good platform, especially taking into account the work that we are doing on the African Regulatory Harmonization Initiative. And so I'll focus my talk on the regulatory intelligence in planning trials and the role of this platform. And as my colleague have said, this platform provides a very useful space to enhance regulatory intelligence in the planning process for clinical trials that are conducted on the continent. And of course, we are all mindful of the fact that regulators' role is really to protect the public health against harmful products that are used, to ensure that they are safe and they're of good quality and they're efficacious. But I think it's also very important that we ensure that the regulatory approval process are also programmed in a way that they facilitate access to innovative new therapies. And one of the issues that we have been confronted with, over many years is the challenges in the regulatory approval processes, and it's considered as a bottleneck when planning and conducting clinical trials on the continent. And in many cases, this could be simply the fact that there is no information, to the trial sponsors on, on the needs to complete for approval processes, or that, they cannot just find the information, and therefore it becomes very frustrating on the part of sponsors. So this platform for us, we find it to be very important, as really it will provide intelligence on the requirements of different ethical committees and regulatory authorities. And this is basically in line with the work that we are doing under the African Medicines Regulatory Harmonization Initiative, which is trying to provide an enabling environment for investment in research and development and production of medical products on the continent. And our aim is to ensure that we facilitate access, of products to patients. And we also have, under the MRH initiative, the African Vaccines Regulatory Forum, which is really aiming at building regulatory capacity of the national regulatory agencies and National Ethics Committee, and providing guidance documents on clinical trial oversight on the continent and the joint review processes. And therefore, having this platform and linking with all the work that we are doing, I think will provide very useful information, especially when clinical trial sponsors are preparing for multi-country clinical trials on the continent. But also, I think it's also very important to recognize the fact that there is a lot of development on the continent. For example, the establishment of the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is really aiming at facilitating movement of goods and services. And of course, also we are planning to establish the African Medicines Agency to, as an offshoot of the MRH initiative, to really facilitate, access of products on the continent. And therefore, this clinical trial platform provides a very useful space for that to happen. So I'll end my talk here and wait for more comments as we proceed with the discussion. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Margaret. Really, really great to have you on board. Really also, once again, thank you for being on the steering committee of this project. So any questions for Margaret, again, type it into the chat and we'll pick them all up at the end. Our next speaker is from the European and Developing Countries Clinical Trials Partnership, but he has a firm and solid basis in Africa. Currently, I think, talking to us from Cape Town in South Africa. So Tom, who is also the chair of the steering committee of the project. So Tom, over to you.
Thanks, Colin, and thanks for all those that have joined us today for this important discussion. And I think most of us are well conversant with how clinical trials and clinical trial funding goes in sub-Saharan Africa. There are lots of funders interested in Africa, lots of sponsors also interested in Africa, and others that are already in action on the continent, and those that are waiting to join the bandwagon. So from the funders and trials point of view, they are usually interested in getting their specific trials done to high international standard as well as quickly as possible. So to meet that, they also look often to options and potentials to build capacity beyond a single site or a single center, like Tom Karaoke alluded to earlier on, so that future conduct of clinical trials is based on solid platforms and networks. Unfortunately, as you all know, for a long time, this hasn't been possible for a multitude of factors, and funders and sponsors seem to be returning to their favorite sites. So I think by showcasing disease burden on where clinical trials should be located, these funders could be assisted to invest in building capacities elsewhere and where also it matters. As you know, diseases don't know boundaries, and they probably go to the weakest point of the continent where we don't have enough capacities and infrastructure to produce to tackle it through clinical trials for producing interventions. So collaborations are key, and this CTC platform provides a unique opportunity for research centers to be visible and then lead to collaboration and leveraging on each other in terms of resources, personnel, and also academic experience for conduct of all phases of clinical trials on the continent. So I would close by saying that this is really an important initiative that we should all be proud of and look forward to be also part of, so that we can work together and also be a selling point for those that funders and sponsors that I mentioned that haven't really had the experience of working here because of some fear that maybe we don't have the capacity. But once we make it visible, we are making a case that we can provide platforms for high standard clinical trials that can lead us to produce interventions that can defeat poverty-related diseases. So I'll just stop there and also be very keen to hear from our colleagues that have joined the webinar today what the views are. Thank you, Colin.
So thanks very much, Tom. And we need to figure out how we differentiate between the two Toms on the call. Maybe we should call you Thomas. Hopefully you'll respond. So with that, I want to thank the panelists for being precisely on time and giving us those contextual remarks. We are monitoring the chat. It's really cool to see some very nice questions coming through and to also see some messages from friends. There's a fairly large number of people that are on the call already. So thanks everybody. And with that, let me now hand over to Adrian Kruger from Cape Town. No, actually from Pretoria in South Africa, from Nuvotech, and he will now give us a demo. So this is going to go on for about 15 minutes or so. Adrian, have fun. And you are still
there we go.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Colin. Thanks everyone. I'm going to stop sharing my video, and I just want to double check, Colin, if you guys can see my screen. Can you guys see the platform?
Yes, we can see that. Great stuff, Adrian.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. So, yeah, it's a great privilege to be with all of you today. So we're going to show you what we have so far. So with all the members that have spoken already, this is their brainchild. This is the hard work they've put in over the past 2 years that us as their technology consultant have put together over the past 3 to 4 months. So this is the main landing screen. So here on the top left-hand side, you'll see this is the actual URL that you can go to on your web browser, ctc.africa. I'm going to take you through the bits and pieces that you see here. I'm going to show you how I log in and how I populate some data inside the platform. And then at the end, I'm going to show you an interactive map which showcases all the little bits and pieces of information that we are collecting. So just here on the landing page, you will see that we have integrated with a couple of data sources. So the first one here is clinicaltrials.gov. Another data source that we're also making use of is the PACTR Clinical Trials Registry and also some others. So we are getting a direct feed from these registries into our platform. And inside the platform, we are then making use of this data. Obviously, this is a real-time feed of all the newest trials specifically being registered on the continent related to COVID-19. If you want to see any of them in a bit more detail, you can click on the view button. It will navigate you to the original source where the data came from, and you can study it in a bit more detail. But ultimately, these little bits and pieces of information we are making use of everywhere in the platform. On the right-hand side, here's our news feed. So these are a bunch of articles that are either written by the team at the African Academy of Sciences or some of their partners. It's all around the COVID-19 pandemic and clinical research efforts currently taking place on the continent. And if you want to see what the whole platform was all about and why we are putting this all together, you're more than welcome to watch this video that is displayed here on the home screen. The second tab that you see here on the top is the About Us. It's really just to tell you what the platform is about and also introduce you to some of the team members. You've seen some of their faces already today on the call. Then also you can see our advisory committee, which we mentioned earlier today. We have a couple of people that we are, like I said, we are working with in terms from a data source perspective, and we also have a couple of partners which we have spoken about already today. The help center. So I'm just going to quickly, if wherever you go on the platform, if you have any kind of questions, you're always welcome to click on the help center button. It will open up a new tab for you. And inside here, there are a whole bunch of very useful links that can help you with how to reset your password, how do you register on the platform, the researcher profile, and anything like this. If you click on the button, there's a very nice interactive explanation of exactly how that specific section is handled. And a big thank you to Faith and her team who have put all of this together so far. And Faith is always available, her and her team, to assist any of you throughout the process. So another one here that I'm quickly going to go to is on the COVID-19 section. So the initial launch of this platform was really, we focused on COVID-19 quite specifically. So for COVID-19, just as on the landing page, we do have a couple of useful links here. So the first one here is a direct feed from the African Center of Disease Control, where you can have a real-time view of the current pandemic that we are facing in the world and how it's impacting the African countries. So this is a real-time feed that we do get from them, and it's interactive, and you can navigate around on this. The second one here will actually take you to our interactive map, which I will leave until the end. And here on the right-hand side, it's just a quick display of all the clinical trials that are currently taking place. This is now pre-filtered for COVID, so it only shows you the COVID studies that we currently have on the platform. But you can put any kind of filter in here for malaria or anything similar to that. At the moment, we don't have all the studies yet from all the different data sources. We are slowly but surely pulling in more and more data from our respective data sources. And with our big launch of the full platform towards the end of October, we plan to have all the clinical trials that have been registered on the respective clinical trials registries to be shown on the system. So before I'm going to just some other useful links on the COVID-19 side, specifically from a regulatory perspective, there's a couple of very useful links that we have here that have been put together by the AVREF team, the WHO team, and also a questionnaire that they sent out to the regulatory parties and the responsible organizations in the respective countries of how they're handling the pandemic. Have they updated their timelines? Are they accepting paper or electronic copies? And any of these documents, you can click on the button, it will open an interactive window right there for you just to start reading, and very, very useful documents for you to go through really around the regulatory requirements. Like you can see here, if you want to engage with anyone at the African Academy of Sciences, you can submit a query here. And also, once you've logged into the platform, I'll show you how you can engage with the team in other ways. If I go a little bit more down, I know there was a question posted earlier about how can certain people get involved with COVID-19 trials. So here's a specific thing, a specific questionnaire that we put together about how different sites can get involved. And you can go on the drop-down list here, you can go and look for your specific research site. And then based on that, once you've logged in, there's a questionnaire that you can complete. And there you can say the kinds of patients that you have at your site and what kinds of facilities do you have, and are you willing to participate in a COVID-19 trial? And that information we will then in turn make available to sponsor or funding communities who are looking for clinical trial sites to assist them with research. The public forum, once again, very important. It's a whole bunch of different topics here around the COVID-19 pandemic at the moment. Over time, we're going to expand these categories and to include some others as well, like malaria and others. But on the public forum, there's a number of different things that you can go in here to see interactive content that we got from the WHO and other sources that you can watch. And obviously, once you've logged in, you can make comments here and ask questions. So now I'm quickly going to show you how I log in. Like Colin mentioned, I'm going to help you a little bit later to take you through the registration process, which is very easy. But this is now a profile that, as an example profile that I can show you. So I've now logged in as a profile. You'll see that my profile type is a researcher. So that's the first, we call it a persona that we are focused on. We are catering for other personas. So obviously we know not everyone are researchers on the continent. So we are making provision for people who represent sponsor or funder companies. And we're also making provision for people who represent regulatory authorities and others. So if you represent any of those, you will log in with a different persona and your profile will look slightly different. These are the tabs that make up your profile. It's very similar to like a LinkedIn kind of approach where you build your public CV, and we are doing work to assist to integrate some of your publications. So if you have an ORCID ID or a Google Scholar ID, we're also now working with PubMed. So if you put in your PubMed ID, we can actually pull in all your publications in here, and those will be one of the features that we are releasing in the coming weeks. So on the left-hand side here, you can see it's like a bird's eye view of your professional CV and all the things you've done. So I know you, the people on the call today, are representing the researchers and clinical trialists. So we encourage all of you later today when I show you how to register to really complete your profile in as much detail as possible when it comes to your research experience, so that we can showcase all your capabilities later on the interactive map. So here on the left-hand side, you'll see that we are going to focus on some other stakeholders that play a part within the clinical research lifecycle. First of all, obviously the clinical research professional, whether it be a regulator or a researcher or a funder. But the next most important part here is the clinical research site. So here on the left-hand side, if you click on the research center or the research site, you will see, first of all, there's 3 tabs here. The first one is My Center. So if I'm an administrator on a specific site, there will be sites that are listed here. If I have affiliated myself with a specific site, so say you are doing research at a specific site, you can go through a process I'll show you now to affiliate yourself with a specific research site. And then if you go to other sites here, you'll see that we have just over 1,000 registered research sites so far on our database, and that we are making available. here are the number of different research sites that you can see here. And if you go into any of them to see a little bit more detail, you can click on the link. Here you'll see we've gone through a bit of an exercise to map out all the research sites, literally on Google Maps to show you an exact location. And we are making use of all of this information along with some others that you see here at the bottom around specific information that we are collecting on behalf of the sites. I know a lot of you are probably familiar with Transcelerate. We did follow the Transcelerate site profile template to complete and capture all these site details, and we are profiling the sites accordingly. You can see, and you will see in the platform, that most of the sites actually there's very little information currently captured on, and that's where we really are relying on the community to assist us to enrich this data, because you might represent the data, or you might represent some of these research institutes, and please reach out to us to become a contributor to that specific research site so that you can help us enrich the data and showcase the capability of that specific site. From a trials perspective, so you can also see that we have a whole bunch of different trials that we have linked here on the platform. So these, we have only imported the trials that we can actually link to specific research sites. So at the moment, we've got about 1,600 trials that we've profiled so far on the platform. We have many, many more to go through. We're busy with the data cleaning exercise. And then the other stakeholders that you see on the left-hand side is the national regulators. So here we'll be able to profile all the national regulators, and in the future we're going to profile all the research ethics committees, the sponsors and CROs, and possibly some other service providers. So we have got about, I would say, about 3 months left until we're reaching the full launch, or 2.5 months left. But leading up to then, we are going to start profiling all of these, and everyone who is registered on the platform will get regular updates of all the new things we are releasing on the platform. So on the platform itself, like I mentioned here, we are profiling the research sites, the regulators, and the researcher profiles. But I think I'm going to go directly here to the interactive map. Just before I go there, we are making provision from a language point of view for the 5 main languages on the African continent, being English, French, Portuguese, Spanish, and Arabic. So it does allow for the entire platform to be translated into those native languages, and just in the Anglophone and Francophone countries to be part of the process. So on the interactive map, so I think this is probably the place where people will spend most of their time. So you'll see that the map, first of all, if you're a first-time user, it will take you through like a bit of a tour, just to explain to you more or less how the map works. So it will, first of all, give you a little explanation of what it's all about, and then it will take you through all the different little toggles and show you exactly how to use the map. So I'm going to end the tour because I'm going to give you a real-time explanation right now. So you'll see the map is interactive. So as I zoom in, all of it's interactive, and as I zoom out, the different representations on a country level changes. We do have a couple of things that you see here on the map. I'm maybe going to go to full screen to make it a little bit more interactive for everyone watching. So here on the left-hand side, you'll see a couple of filters that we are making use of. So one of the people that we are getting data from is the IHME, who are based there in Seattle. They are providing us with some disease burden data. So here at the moment, we've only have 3 different types of diseases at the moment. We are expanding this to include a whole bunch of other diseases as well. But as an example, malaria, and here at the bottom, you can have a scroll bar to see how the prevalence of this specific disease has changed over the years. And then on this, you can now also say, okay, now you see all these sites and you want to filter, you only want to see interventional or observational trials, you only want to see phases 1, 2, 3, or 4, or you actually want to see just something specific to a condition. So this drop down here will actually allow you to view something specific to malaria or to COVID-19 or something similar. So now if I zoom into a specific, as an example, into a specific country, so let's go into Malawi, let's go to this side over here. So to this specific site, the Malawi Liverpool Wellcome Trust site, If we have all the information, this will be displayed here. And if you want to see any of the studies related to this specific site, it will be updated here. At the moment, you can see we don't have anything specifically listed against that trial site at the moment. But there are a whole bunch of other sites. I just quickly want to see if I can get an example here of a site where it has some data. Let's see, Groote Schuur Hospital, if they have some studies, there's an example. So if you want to see, these are all the studies. You can see there's a whole bunch of studies currently taking place at the University of Cape Town, at Groote Schuur Hospital. And once again, here, if you want to navigate to the source data, we do give you the link here, and it will actually open up a new tab, and it will take you to the clinicaltrials.gov source document, or the source reference site. So at the moment, this is where we are. I think over time, obviously, we're just showcasing the research sites and the studies at the moment on a map here. Sorry, if you want to reset to a centralized view, you can click on that little button just to reset your view. But over time, we really want to make this a one-stop shop for anyone who is considering to come to the African continent to conduct clinical research. So from this side, the sponsor and the funder community will be able to see which sites are doing what kind of research, what researchers are on the continent. They're going to be able to see the regulatory requirements, which we are getting from the likes of ClinRegs. And then they will also be able to see which CROs are offering what kind of service in which country, and ultimately really showcase the capabilities that we have here on the continent. I'm going to stop there. Thank you, Colin. I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thanks, Adrian. You've managed to hold back your enthusiasm for the platform and keep well within time. Thank you so much. There's already questions coming through on the chat for you, Adrian, but we'll hold that for the moment. As I mentioned earlier on, Adrian will come back and will guide you through registration on the platform, either for your site or for yourself. But as he pointed out, this platform is already live, so you're welcome to even try to register on your own. It's ctc.africa is the URL. I'm going to go back, so we're going to open it up now for questions. I'll pull out some of those that have come through the chat. But first, Faith wants to ask yet another question. Faith, are you ready?
Hi, Colin. Yes, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Those who are joining us, please proceed to open a browser on your phone or on your laptop and go to menti.com, menti.com. That's menti.com, and enter the code 601749. You can see it on the slide presented right now. Those of us who are already there, thank you so much for your patience and for participating so far. I'll just take a beat and then we can go to the next question. menti.com, then 601749. Okay. When prompted, if prompted, kindly click go to slide. You will be able to see the next question that I pose. All right, so here I go. How many times has your clinical trial site or center been involved in a site feasibility assessment? Please begin to put in your answers. I will start the timer now. Thank you so much for everybody who's participating. We are at 20 seconds now. Thank you so much. The results are coming in. We're at 5 seconds. And time. Thank you so much. I will go to the next question. If prompted, kindly click go to slide. You are encouraged to please tick all that apply about your experiences. I will restart the timer. Please, but we are encouraged to participate so that we understand better where you're coming from. Thank you. I can see votes coming in. 15 seconds to go. Thank you so much. And time. Thank you, Colin. Back to you.
So thanks very much, Faith. Let's see now. Shall we share the results closer after we do the Q&A or after we do the demo? Is that the plan, Faith?
After the final demo, yes.
Okay, so that's incentive for you to stay towards the end of the meeting. My promise to you is that we will keep this within time. So if I could now ask the panelists to turn on their videos, and if I could also ask Caxton in the background from time to time to prompt me with some of the questions. Tom Karaoke, are you still on the call?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Sorry, I'm here.
Okay, excellent, Tom, because I thought the first question would be one that could go to you. It comes from my good friend, John Sebastian in South Africa, who I worked with a while ago. And he wanted to know about how people in Africa could get involved in COVID vaccine trials. Do you want to highlight some of the programs or the activities that the African Academy of Sciences is busy with on the continent in that regard?
Yes, but I would imagine that Jennifer and the team would be more pressed to answer that question around what's happening with the COVID. But one of the things that has happened in the last few weeks is that we have all been impressed by the work of Africa CDC in trying to provide leadership on what could happen on the continent if all of us were organized and pressed in a way that we can attract more clinical trials for COVID-19. There are 200 plus molecule candidate vaccines that have in various stages of exploratory or preclinical trials across the world. What I think Africa CDC has said based on the new launching of a platform, they would like to see those that are advancing from the exploratory stages to phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, many of them coming to Africa. And I think we have set a target of about 15 of them that they would love to see happening on the continent. Similarly, in discussions with CEPI, this is exactly also what we would want to see. There are 9 candidates that I think that have received hundreds of millions of dollars currently. Most of this is going to Europe, China, a little bit of going into the rest of Asia, and of course North America, but not much happening on the continent with regard to the funding coming out of CEPI, because I think it's a question of how we place ourselves and how the preparedness of the various sites and centers can be attractive to the sponsors. So yes, this is exactly why we are building this journey then, and trying to place ourselves at the center table of discussions about what should happen over the next few years. But I am sure the team can add a little bit more about our thinking around the COVID-19 vaccine candidates.
So thanks very much, Tom. I wanted you to come in, to just give that higher level. Then more practically, Jen, related to the platform. I mean, could you make a comment or two as to what people could do to get themselves visible? Unmute, please, Jen.
Sorry about that. Thanks very much, Colin, and thanks, Tom, for that high level. With regard to the platform, what we would like to do is to encourage all clinical trial sites and centers and trialists to register themselves and on the platform. So once your information is available on the platform, we are engaging with multiple different potential funders, and we are directing them to the platform so they will be able to come in and look on the platform and see which sites and centers have the right infrastructure and capacity to be able to conduct the kind of trials that they are thinking about, and so they will engage. They'll then be able to engage with you directly. Thank you.
So thanks, Jen. Now, colleagues, we've allocated something like 15 minutes for questions, and I'm going to try and get all of the panelists to take at least one of the questions. But if to the panelists, this is a team. If you feel that you want to jump in on one of the questions, feel free to do that. The next one, maybe I can bring you in, Tom. Tom N. Again, related to the whole topic of trials on the continent and how people can get together to be able to get involved with trials, you know, with your role within EDCTP. Is that something that you would like to comment on in terms of networks of trials?
Thanks very much, Colin. So you're touching on something that many funders that are interested in building solid networks in Africa have been grappling with for the last 15 years. As you know, that probably all of us on the panel, including yourself and some of the members in the audience, we are all trained elsewhere, mainly in the West. And the links we have directly from there, but nothing to show for when it comes to what we call South-South networking. So I think this is an opportunity to have a tool like what we have in front of us now, that we can start to explore synergies that were difficult before. Because what is next door to you was not visible, so we should actually think that this is something that should build on the already ongoing efforts that we have, especially when we talk of North-South technology transfer and things. That's why from the EDCTP side, we have deliberate programs of like what we call networks of excellence, just to bring together institutions that have traditionally not have had the culture of working together, even within one country. Competing for when competition is not warranted, it may not be the best approach that we can defeat the diseases that are against us. And so these deliberate efforts to cross-fertilize, see the, put yourself out there, show your capabilities and willingness to hold hands with others next to you or just with somewhere within the continent. And later on, maybe we'll be talking about how we can solidify these piecemeal networks that we see into big Pan-African networks. And it can only happen through a platform like CTC. So everything, I think, it has to be rethought. It can't be business as usual. So all funders have different ways of how they've been doing business. But I think here is now a challenge that, we cannot use excuses we used to use 10 years ago when information is right in front of us, as Adrian has presented very clearly. Now you'll be able to say, if there's a site that can join me to do clinical trials in vaccines, in COVID vaccines next door, probably that's the best way to go before you contact a site that is far, far away from you and may make logistics completely unaffordable and expensive to a funder or a sponsor. To make things attractive to every party that is interested, I think will be the next step forward.
And Ali, do you wanna add to that? You know, as somebody that's actively running trials, is that something that would be attractive to you as well? You know, in terms of collaborations among the groups doing trials.
Yes, correct. I think yes. So I totally agree with what Professor Thomas said, but also I think as a trialist and you know with a specific interest, what you want to do is also sort of identify people within the African sort of scientific community who are doing almost who are doing similar things, and I think the platform, by sort of people profiling their experiences on individual level, I think that could also be helpful, because you want to link with those who are working within specific area of your interest and sort of link up and see how you can collaborate. So sort of if you look at it from that level, that would also be very helpful, sort of forming those networks across different scientific fields. And I think I think this will be also the utility of this platform, and I think it can provide that.
So we lost a little bit of audio on you right towards the end, Ali, but as it turns out, as you were speaking, there was another question that came through, or a comment. The question says, how do we strengthen non-experienced trial sites considering the competitive nature for grants? It seems more experienced sites get more and more funding, while less or non-experienced sites still lag behind. So do you see it from the FACARA side as being competition, or would you see this as collaboration?
Yeah, that's a very good point, and I think this is the I think the fear which I understand where it comes from, especially when sites which are just emerging, they don't have experience, kind of are put in the same platform with the sites which are very much experienced, and they have both the expertise and the infrastructure. So I think there's a legitimate concern there, but I think, as you rightly put it, we should sort of change our mindset now. Should be more sort of collaboration rather than sort of competition. And the idea, I think, for this platform should be to really advocate for the collaboration, ensuring that those sites which are sort of newly emerging with less expertise, working together with the sites which have expertise, and we have the transfer of experience and skills. So I think for me, I look at it from the angle of collaboration, fostering collaboration that does more than sort of competition. We all know, for instance, now for us who are working in specific areas like malaria, and when you want to do these sort of large studies in the field, maybe one country cannot be alone able to have sufficient numbers to provide sufficient evidence as to whether the intervention is working or not. So you have to work across borders with other regional sites. So I think collaboration is more important than looking at it from the competitive from the competition point of view.
No, great answers. Thank you, Ali, in terms of your answers around power. So Margaret, I hope you are still in the call, because I don't see you on the video. There's one question that came through, which is kind of a hot potato question. How do we ensure that we establish win-win clinical trials collaborations and minimize clinical trials dumping to Africa? Any comments on that, Margaret, or anybody else for that matter?
Hi, Margaret here. I think when it comes to minimizing dumping clinical trials to Africa, this is a very critical aspect that we need to consider as African scientists, because the practice has been that because of limited capacity to regulate clinical trial, you have a situation where, you know, trials are done in a country, the regulatory agency is not aware, the ethics committees are not aware. And so for me, I think establishing this clinical trial platform provides a very good tool to first help the regulators to track where the trials are conducted, but secondly, to ensure that they are able to now, you know, follow up to, you know, in terms of compliance to GCP standards and so forth. And so I think this platform provides a very good opportunity for that to happen, and that eventually would see a situation where there is confidence, for example, in terms of the trials that are conducted on the continent, in terms of standards, in terms of the transparency, and in terms of really ensuring, you know, the quality of work that is conducted on the continent. And I believe that in a way will reduce the dumping sort of approach that other sponsors have taken advantage of. Over to you.
So thanks, Margaret. So Tom, you want to say something? Please go ahead.
Thanks, Colin. So I just want to compliment on what Margaret has said, because the other concept of dumping happens because of fragmentation. And if we don't have a common research agenda, then we are fragmented, and somebody can come and start to impose things that they think are important to them. So one thing that this platform could do, when it will strengthen collaborations, and also to have issues of, for example, having one research agenda. We are talking of a solidarity trial that, you know, is spearheaded by WHO, but having one platform would have that kind of approach by African sites, that they have one research agenda. So anyone coming from outside, they buy into what the African sites have indicated as their priority areas based on their guidance that they get from their respective sovereign governments. But at the moment, that is not there. So people take advantage of this fragmentation to impose what looks like imposed when they are trying to do their best to help.
Thanks very much, Tom. And then I'm going to ask Jen and maybe Tom, if he's still around, to just comment a little bit on the collaborations with AVREF. But I just want to let you know that in terms of the time for Q&A, we are now over time, but I'm going to take moderator prerogative and extend the time a bit for that, because I think it's very important. We certainly will not finish all the questions, but the team promises to be able to send you answers or post answers on the CTC platform site. Jen, do you want to comment on the collaborations with AVREF?
Thanks, Colin, again. So as Colin has mentioned, this journey has been going on for about 2 years now. Last year, we spent a lot of time talking to different stakeholders and engaging with key partners on the continent. So we have been engaged with WHO, AVREF, and working together with Dr. Diadi, who is not on the call today. And what we are trying to do is to just make sure that we understand what the key intelligence information is that can allow us to have some harmonized intelligence information on the platform to allow people to make decisions. And so we've developed a tool that has been tested and approved by the AVREF steering committee. And this tool will be incorporated in the platform that we are developing. And it's the tool that we will use to collect some information. Obviously, we are using an agile methodology in this development, and so we are able to actually speak to users like yourselves. That's why we are asking some of these questions in the Mentimeters, to be able to understand whether we are capturing all the issues that you may have, and we can continue iterations on this tool, and then collect the information and make it available on the platform, so that anybody, including sponsors or collaborators, will be able to know what information is required in different countries, at what level, and the costs and the timing and everything, but also encouraging a lot of collaborations within the regional bodies that work on regulatory and ethics. The other thing is we are looking into possibilities of potentially having a feature that allows online submission and online review of the proposals, and those are conversations that are ongoing at the moment, and hopefully in the next few months we'll be able to come back with you with more information on where those conversations are and what we have on the platform for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Tom Karaoke, would you like to add something to that or not?
Not really. Just to say that if anybody out there has the political gravitas to bring regulatory issues in Africa to come to bear much more quickly, that would be very, very much appreciated.
Thanks, Tom. So there's one quick one for you, Adrian. Where are you getting your clinical trial site information? Your clinical trial information.
Thanks, Colin. So at the moment, we are working with the data source clinicaltrials.gov. So they have an open database which we access via an API. So it's just a technical term of how our platform connects directly into clinicaltrials.gov. We are also working with the PACTR registry, because we did find that there were a couple of trials that were registered on the PACTR registry that weren't on clinicaltrials.gov. At the moment, we are finalizing the total automation of this process. So as and when new clinical trials are registered on any of these registries, we're also working with some others, the data will automatically be loaded on the platform. That's an ongoing process. We did, obviously, some of these data sources does allow the applicant and the sponsor company to capture the data in a number of different formats, and we're trying to uniformly bring everything together. So we are facing some data discrepancy challenges, but I think we're winning it. And yes, but those are our main data sources: clinicaltrials.gov, PACTR, and then also the WHO has a couple of recommendations of clinical trial registries that they suggest, where the national ones representing the different regions. So there's one in India we're also working with.
Thanks, Adrian. So there was one question that came in where somebody wanted to know, how can I ask a question about traditional medicine? So I'm going to take that one. It's something that I'm not an expert on, and I feel embarrassed about that. But if you go to covidtrials.org, and this is the registry of COVID trials, you'll see that there's quite a lot of trials that could fall into the category of traditional medicines. If you look at traditional Chinese medicines, there's 126 entries there currently. I found 154 entries on nutrition, 309 on alternate therapies, 360 on vitamins. So it kind of gives you a sense that you can get involved in these trials. The reason I mention logging it on clinicaltrials.gov or covidtrials.gov is that we really do need to move towards a mechanism whereby we can generate evidence that the community can look at with these trials. The last question I'm going to give to Jen, and Jen, if you could then transition in answering the question directly into your next stage, which is the future of the CTC platform. With that, I'm going to thank the panel and also thank the audience for all the questions. We will answer the questions that we haven't been able to present now. And if I could ask the panel to turn their videos off now. So Jen, the two questions for you. Somebody wanted to know how the panel relates to the Global Health Network. So if you can comment on that. And then somebody else, I think it was the same person, wanted to know whether registration is free. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Colin. So I'll take those questions quickly, also cognizant of the time. So we are aware of the Global Health Network. Actually, Trudy Lang is one of our advisory committee members. We are having conversations around any information that might be on the Global Health Network platform that we could plug into. However, just to highlight, I guess the question is, what's the difference between the two? As you can see, we are really focusing on showcasing the clinical trial centers, sites, capacities, and capabilities on the African continent. So we have a very targeted focus there. And the idea is to reduce the workload that sites have, as someone else mentioned earlier. We are going to have information on site feasibility on the platform, and we are going to encourage collaborations within these sites on the African continent, besides just highlighting the researchers that have the capabilities to conduct these trials. So the focus is really on clinical trials when you think about the CTC platform. In terms of registration is free. And please, again, visit www.ctc.africa and you will be able to register. If you have any questions or difficulties, you can contact us on the help desk center. And then to transition into the last comment that Colin requested me to, actually the first one I want to comment on is related to the Global Health Network. So one of the things that we intend to have on the CTC platform that it hasn't been built on there yet are educational materials. So we do want to collaborate with the Global Health Network, because we do know that they already have some very good educational materials on their website. So we want to link up to and use those models on our platform. But we would like to hear from you whether there are any gaps that are obvious that we should be thinking about, so that new models then can be developed to cover those kind of gaps. I also wanted to highlight the fact that we are going to have another series, first to highlight the fact that this platform that is available to the public right now is very, very focused on COVID-19. But again, this journey has been a 2-year journey, which means we started the journey way before COVID-19 came into be. And so going into the future, we are building the rest of the features that will allow us to expand the platform to cover diseases of public health importance on the African continent. And we might be starting with the big 3, the HIV, TB, and malaria, but we are also moving into other diseases and acknowledging the fact that there's an epidemiological shift. We will have information on non-communicable diseases and also diseases of hereditary nature, such as sickle cell disease. So look, keep your eyes open, keep following us, and this will be expanding in the next few months. We do have a number of webinars coming up. We are proposing a webinar where we will hopefully be able to bring a team of regulators and ethicists from the continent to speak to us, so please stay tuned. We will be bringing eventually some sponsors to speak to us, and also we don't forget the community members that actually participate in these trials. We also want to hear from them and find out what their pain points are and what things they would like to be presented to them on the platform to better understand the clinical trials. And finally, I just want to say that we will, the main platform, as we keep mentioning it, will be available in the Q4. So sometime in November, we will communicate a date in due course. And so again, stay tuned and we look forward to walking this journey with you. Spread the word and let people know about the platform so that they can come on there and register. Thank you very much for joining the webinar. I'll hand back over to Colin. Thank you.
So thanks, Jen, and thanks for highlighting that this is really still the minimum viable product, even though it looks pretty impressive already. What I want to do now is to hand back to Adrian to see if he could lead us through in maybe 5 minutes, so people could potentially try this live to register themselves on the platform. Adrian?
Yes, thank you. Can you just make me a presenter again? There we go. Okay, cool. Just Colin, to check with you. Can you see the screen again?
Yes, Adrian, can see.
Happiness. Okay, so like Jennifer mentioned, so you can go to the URL that you see on the top left-hand side, either www.ctc.africa or without the www. You will land on this screen here. For you to register, we made it as easy as possible. So there, I'm going to highlight 3 ways of how you can register. So currently we do have integration built with ORCID ID. So if you do have an ORCID ID, you can click there. It will open up a screen directly in ORCID ID, and you can use your ORCID ID to create a profile for you. The other way for you to do it is also just by putting in your full name, your email address, and your password, and you can register like that. Or probably the one that we found is most popular is signing up with LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, it will take you to the LinkedIn sign-in screen. From here, I have a profile already, so I'm just going to use my wife's credentials to show you what it looks like. So yeah, from the sign-in screen, first of all, before you get this screen, you're going to get a little screen where it says, do you authorize LinkedIn to get your profile picture, your email address, and your first name? And just say yes, you allow it. From there, you will land here on this screen that I just showed you here. So this is where I mentioned it earlier in my presentation, where you have to profile yourself against a specific persona. So whether you're a researcher, a regulator, a sponsor, or other. I did see we tried. There's many questions that came in. Thank you for all of that, and we're definitely going to provide feedback to all of you. But I did see that there were some questions around certain professionals that would like to profile themselves and their skills. So you maybe profile yourselves under other, and over time, please come send us these suggestions, because I think profiling specific professionals that can assist in the conduct of clinical trials is essential, not only researchers, but also research professionals, whether it be statisticians or monitors or anyone who typically works for a CRO. So once you've identified or linked yourself to a specific persona, it will look like this. And then from here on, you'll see there's a little progress bar there at the top. So as you complete your personal details and link yourself to a specific country and fill in your contact details, you can put in your ResearchGate, Google Scholar, LinkedIn profile, and ORCID ID in here. And if you have your ORCID ID, you can put in your ORCID ID digit in here and hit the green button, which will pull in your publications from ORCID ID. We have received feedback from the researcher community that not everyone has an ORCID ID, so we are looking to implement PubMed, which is more commonly used. From an education perspective, very similar. You can add all your different degrees or diplomas or different things you have on here, what your speciality is in. We have a predefined list of specialities that we did get from Transcelerate, and that you can link yourself against for that specific degree that you have, whether it's ongoing or whether you've completed it. From a professional experience, very similar to how LinkedIn does it. And as you're completing these different elements, it will update your section here on the left-hand side. Your research experience. Once again, I think this is very important. We're going to showcase this on the front end. So please indicate what types of studies you have done, where you have any experience in. This is very high level, your research experience. And then here at the bottom, you can go into a bit of details of specific therapeutic areas or sub-therapeutic areas, how many trials you've completed and how many you have ongoing. And all of this statistics we'll keep and then showcase to people accessing that interactive map, which I showed you earlier. The publications, like I said earlier, you can either add publications or presentations manually one by one, or you can use one of the integration partners that we showed earlier. And everyone who registers on the platform, we will make use of this email address to reach out to you via the African Academy's marketing team of any new releases and new features we are releasing on the platform. And obviously, like it typically works with these kinds of communications, if you want to opt out or if you don't want to receive any communication anymore, you can just opt out. But I think definitely in the next 12 to 16 weeks, there's going to be very exciting news coming out of this platform of all the things that we are working on. And then I think at the moment, the one feature that we have activated so far. So once you have a profile, you can click here on the research, the center or the site here on the left-hand side. You'll see that under my centers, I have nothing that are listed there. And also under affiliated centers or site, I have nothing. But you can go to other sites and then you can see, go here through the database of all the different things. So say you do work at Kemri, you can then click on that little green button. I just want to quickly as a test do it. So on the Kemri one, you can click on the link and you will affiliate yourself with that site. So now if I navigate back to affiliated sites, you will see that these are now my affiliated sites. And so what we are planning on doing is, if on the front end, if people come to our interactive map later on and they go to that specific site, just quickly want to show you that we haven't activated that feature. I just want to show you of how we're planning on doing it. I'm just going to end the tour. But if you click on that specific site, here at the bottom, we will have little profile pictures of all the researchers who have affiliated themselves with this specific site. And if the people click on that little profile picture, it will actually open your personal profile picture of your research profile, like I just showed you here. Yeah, so that is where we are at the moment. We really want to showcase the capabilities of the researchers, and we want to showcase you guys, because I think there's so many people in the world who don't know about all the excellent skills and the people we have on the continent. Yeah, so that's it. If you have any questions, like I said last time, please feel free to click here on the help center, reach out to us if you have any suggestions or questions. And also just to reiterate what Colin said, we will definitely get back to all of you regarding the questions you posted. Thank you so much, Colin. I'm going to hand it back to you for closing.
Thanks, Adrian. And we are right at the closing time of the meeting. However, Faith has one more question, and I think this is an important question because really it is about getting feedback from you. So Faith, could you do that fairly quickly?
Yes, thank you. Again, it's menti.com 601749. If prompted, kindly click Go to Slide. What else would you like to see from the AAS-CTC team? And this question is 1 minute long, so I'll start timing it. You are encouraged to add as many entries as possible.
And then, of course, you have the question open, and Faith, if possible, keep the question open even longer. So let's keep the question open while Tom Karaoke, if you could help me close the meeting. Tom, are you still around? I guess Tom is looking for his unmute button and video button. And while Tom is doing that, let me thank everybody for your active participation in this meeting. You heard from Tom Karaoke right at the beginning that this particular project has got really, really impressive international and local support. It's still new, so the big point for us is that you register on the platform, start making the platform useful, so that when we go live, this is a pre-release webinar. When we go live in the fourth quarter, we really already have pretty good data on there. But so the platform is live. The AAS is already receiving really active questions and requests for where they might be able to locate clinical trials. So we're already seeing the value of this. With that, is Tom still around or not? Jen, is there anything else that you'd like to say on behalf of the African Academy of Sciences, Jen?
Yes, on behalf of the African Academy of Sciences, I would like to thank everyone that has taken their time off their very busy schedule, late hours in Africa, I know, to join this call. We will get back to you with some feedback to some of the questions that you've posted and anything else. Some of them we might be able to actually post on the CTC platform, so look out for a section for this so that we can keep each other engaged and start these collaborations that we are talking about right there on the platform. And then also look out for the coming invites for the other series of webinars in the coming weeks. Thank you very much again, and back to you, Colin.
Jen, last word from me. I want to thank the African Academy of Sciences personally for this amazing project and for so actively engaging me in it. So with that, we will close the meeting now. Thank you, everybody.